There were a ton of great games you could only play on PlayStation 4. Hi folks, it's Falcon, and today on GameRanx, 20 of the best PS4 exclusives of all time. Just a quick disclaimer, Detroit Become Human, Horizon Zero Dawn, and Death Stranding are all available on PC, or very soon will be, so we had to exclude those. Without any further ado though, starting off at number 20, it's The Last Guardian. A game that Team Ico began developing in 2007. It had a long and storied development which involved Team Ico collapsing, members of it leaving, forming their own studio, and working with Sony Interactive Japan Studio to finish it out. It was a game that got a lot of praise for the AI companion Trico, which is this really realistic, stubborn, sometimes kinda buggy, but very charming, huge animal, and it's really a beautiful game. At number 19 is Firewall 0 Hour, which is this absolutely phenomenal PS VR online shooter, which is a lot like Rainbow Six Contracts idea. It's short PvP matches where one team attacks, one team defends. The whole point is retrieving intel. But if you have played this game with a PS aim controller, it is just the best VR shooter, competitively speaking. Nothing beats it. It's amazing. And it's a couple years old at this point, but it just nails everything. If you haven't played it, give it a shot. At number 18 is WipEout Mega Collection, which is just this fantastic game. I mean, WipEout has always been this high-octane racer. I understand, it's kind of always been in competition with F-Zero, but in a lot of ways, in my opinion, it really resembles Mario Kart, but way faster. The Omega Collection brings so much content to the WipEout fan, and it looks amazing on the PS4. And number 17 is Ratchet Clank 2016, the reimagining of the original game, which is absolutely beautiful and adds a ton to it, not just in graphics, but also in gameplay. It's a not fundamentally different game, but it's definitely not the same game. And it improves on the original formula significantly, incorporating lots of stuff from later games, as well as adding things like strafing. Ratchet Clank 2016 is a hell of a game. And I was just beyond stoked to find out they were even doing it, and I can't wait for Insomniac's follow-up. At number 16 is Gravity Rush 2. Now, you can talk a lot about the design, the art style, levels, various other aspects of this game, but really, the Gravity Rush mechanic is what makes the series so phenomenal and interesting. You play as a character who has control over gravity, essentially making it so you can fly, except for, well, it goes a little different than just oh, I'm flying. To bring the level design back into it, that's a huge reason why the game is so good, but without the mechanic that lays the groundwork, Gravity Rush 2 wouldn't be what it is, which is beyond good. At number 15 is Infamous Second Son, which is sort of a restarting of the Infamous series. Obviously, the story concludes pretty heavily, but not all conduits got killed at the end of the game, and you got to play as a conduit who has the ability to emulate the powers of other conduits they come into contact with. Now, this was a game that took the concepts from Infamous and just blew them up into a very large scale, and I would say it'd be hard to call it anything but a classic. It's a phenomenal game. The morality system was super old school, but it worked really well for the story, and it was just a massive amount of fun. At number 14 is Dreams, which is less a game and more a game creation system. However, I think it's pretty important to bring up on account the PlayStation 4 has this amazing game creation system on it. It was developed by the same people who made Little Big Planet, called Media Molecule, and it's enabled people to make Resident Evil-like games. Somebody remade Dead Space. There's a ton of really amazing first-person shooters, and it's just shocking how much people can do in this honestly pretty simple game creation studio. There's no real way to cover this in 30 to 40 seconds. It's amazing. At number 13 is Uncharted: The Lost Legacy, which obviously is not better than Uncharted 4, but it also proved that Uncharted can be more than just Nathan Drake's story, because The Lost Legacy is actually phenomenal, especially given the fact that it had a much more condensed development process, and given the fact that it is shorter than the average Uncharted game. It still provides enough punch and satisfaction that in my opinion, just more than justifies the price, but maybe it's just that I can't get enough of any character in the Uncharted world. At number 12 is Gran Turismo Sport, which was envisioned as a sort of multiplayer, always online racing game. that actually nailed exactly that very well. However, fans really wanted a campaign, and for the most part, they got a satisfying addition to the game later. Players can play GT League now, which is as close to single-player campaign as GT Sport gets. Although I don't know if I'd call it a full campaign. The game itself is really just a phenomenal, beautiful, fun racing game that gives you so much to do, even if it isn't necessarily the full-featured Gran Turismo that we know we'll see on PlayStation 5. It is easily one of the best, if not the best, racing games on the PlayStation 4. At number 11 is Until Dawn, which is a really phenomenal horror title that is based much more in narrative than anything else and does a phenomenal job of that. It was so good that it essentially gave the studio the ability to create its own sort of cinematic universe of horror games built on the success of Until Dawn. This is really one of the best horror games you could imagine for a PlayStation 4 platform. It does such a great job graphically and atmospherically that the fact it has a great story is probably what makes it good, but it doesn't actually lean on it in the way that some games like it might. Until Dawn is just the full package. At number 10 is Days Gone, which I think managed to do the zombie horde open world game better than anything else. I know that was maybe a vaguely controversial thing to say at its release, as some of the reviews actually really didn't have a lot of nice things to say. However, I found it to be one of the most engaging games of its type. It also happens to be a very beautiful game, and I think manages to be a good blend of action and, in some cases, actually sandbox gameplay. Plus, I mean motorcycle. Come on. At number 9 is Yakuza 6. Now, if you are a fan of Yakuza, you know exactly why this is on this list. Any Yakuza game, I think you could probably pop into this list. You could dunk Judgment into this list as well. So we're kind of just leaning on 6 here. These are over-the-top, silly games that kind of act as both a successor to Shenmue as well as Virtua Fighter, in that they have some of the best, most enjoyable fighting you can imagine for the type of game it is, and they develop the world they exist in, putting you in the legendary Kamurocho district, but also in Onomichi and Hiroshima. Yakuza 6 it rips. It's such an amazing game. I love it. Number 8, Persona 5, which is probably the definitive Persona game, which is probably one of the definitive JRPG series that exists. Persona 5 perfects the Persona battle system in such a way that, it's hard to put it down. You could probably make a mobile app of Persona 5's battles and just have me waste all of my time playing it. But obviously the story is great, the music is great, the characters are great. What else can you say about Persona 5? It's probably the best JRPG on the console. At number 7 is the Shadow of the Colossus remake, which part of the reason we have to bring this up is that Shadow of the Colossus is one of the best games of all time. It has served as inspiration for so much about open world games, and the remake for the PlayStation 4 is just one of the most gorgeous games in the world, period. Which is interesting because they actually built it on top of the original PS2 codebase, clearly updating a lot. It's hard to call it anything but a stunning achievement. I love the Shadow of Colossus remake. I'm so happy they did it. At number 6 is Uncharted 4, which concluded the story of Nathan Drake and gave us a proper ending to all of it, tidying up all the loose ends and honestly really being a satisfying game. We included The Lost Legacy on this list because it's really a phenomenal game, but this one's really the full Uncharted experience. This is the definitive game of the series. At number 5 is Ghost of Tsushima, which you might be surprised to see how high we rated this one on this list, but let's just go ahead and say this. A couple of these entries are late in the lifespan of the console, and Ghost of Tsushima is just amazing. It is beautiful. It is so well created from both a design perspective, from a visual design perspective. Gameplay is just endlessly enjoyable. I love the stealth. I love so many of the choices they made about the controls. And I even love the photo mode. I'm not really a big photo mode guy, but I've wasted a lot of time doing that in this game, let me tell you that. At number 4 is The Last of Us Remastered, as well as Last of Us Part 2. We sort of condensed them into one thing because Last of Us Remastered is stunning. It's such a great update of the original, and Last of Us Part 2 continues the story. And while there are definitely some controversial elements of the story, it is a tremendously satisfying game to play. Seriously, as far as action zombie games go that manage to tell an interesting story, there's not a lot that you can do better than these two. At number 3 is Bloodborne, which is kind of a faster, albeit not like massively faster version of Dark Souls, which came to us and sort of revolutionized the Dark Souls formula, in my opinion. You can play Bloodborne and go back to any Dark Souls game and really come out with a different playstyle because it kind of modifies your expectations of what is possible. Considering how big a deal Dark Souls is, that they decided to do that with a PS4 exclusive is pretty awesome, actually. And also the Bloodborne world is just beyond cool. At number 2 is SpiderMan, which, you know, it's imperfect. I'm not going to say that it's like the perfect game or anything. It does indulge some of the stereotypes of its genre. However, the things that it does to mitigate those issues, the web slinging, the fighting, is amazing. I mean, it's the best Spider-Man game, period. You don't do better than Insomniac's Spider-Man on PS4, and I'm really looking forward to the follow-up. And finally, probably the masterpiece of the entire PS4 era, it's of course God of War. This is a game that entirely reimagined the formula, which is kind of a pretty arcadey, hack and slash, beat 'em up, romp style game, and turned it into a narrative game that preserved a lot of the fighting that we loved from it, however slowed the pace a bit and made us think a bit more. That they managed to do this without making people hate it, instead making people think it's the best game on the PlayStation 4. I mean, what can you say? It's literally just a masterpiece. It's a phenomenal game, and if you haven't played it, I don't know how you haven't played it. If you've got a PlayStation 4 and you're thinking of buying a game and you haven't played God of War, that's it. Do that one. But what did you think? Have you played any of these games? Did you think they were as good as we did? Leave us a comment, let us know. If you like this video, click like. If you're not subscribed, now's a great time to do so. We upload brand new videos every day of the week. The best way to see them first is, of course, a subscription. So click subscribe. Don't forget to click the notification bell. And as always, we thank you very much for watching this video. I'm Falcon. You can follow me on Twitter, Falcon Hero. We'll see you next time right here on GameRanx.